right, everyone. I'm very happy to be presenting a special episode of the Six-Sided Podcast tonight. We're going to be taking a look at the results and getting some reactions on the Evolution pay-per-view that just aired tonight. And joining me on this very special occasion, I have Miss Beauty Slam herself, the Queen of the South, leader of the Sparkle Army, the Southern Roll Tide Belle herself, Miss Jenna. Miss Jenna, how the hell are you doing?
I am fan-freaking-tastic. Excited to be here. On a high after this show a little bit, actually.
I was just going to say, do you feel a real sense of women empowerment finally from this company?
Yes. Because I'm not even going to lie, like, I put my predictions up on my Instagram earlier tonight, and I have never, ever been more excited to be wrong. Because so many times the WWE has done this one step forward, 3 steps back thing with the women. And it felt like tonight they got it right. Like top to bottom, they got it right. And this is the first time I've ever felt that way.
So if anybody's listening to this who didn't listen to the show that we had previously done, first off, shame on you because you missed a fantastic episode. But you and I had, you and I had talked about that exact part. Like, it would be such a shame for them to have this big event and not do the right thing, right?
Yes.
Instead of, it didn't matter so much tonight about pushing their own agenda, although that did happen a little bit, and we're going to get into that throughout this program. But it wasn't as much of, we're just going to shove this down your throats and you guys are going to have to like it, or whatever, we don't really care. But no, tonight was a great showcase of, let's kind of not so much give the people what they want, but not try and give the people what they don't want.
Right. Yeah. Let's try to do what the fans want to see. Yes.
So, obviously, universally, and we were talking about this just before the program started, universally on Twitter, reactions have seemed extremely positive. I just wanted to get your quick thoughts of what you thought of the show as itself, as a presentation, as a possibly one-off entity.
I thought it was done extremely well. And I liked how they spliced in interviews with the women speaking about what Evolution is. I like how they used this pay-per-view to show their Girls Up partnership. Like, it was, we all know after Stephanie tweeted that out that philanthropy is the future of business. We know that's her belief. So we know that they're going to push philanthropic commercials. We know that. But this was the most opportune time to show we have this thing going with Girls Up. They brought the girls from Girls Up and gave them seats. It was just presented in a very, having both Renee and Beth Phoenix on commentary. I thought that overall, my only qualm was the opening band, but we'll get to that.
So
everything else was extraordinary, I thought.
And which is odd because, like, why you wouldn't go with the band that had the single that you're using for the promos for the show?
Right. Well, and the thing that killed me is Salute. I'm a mixer. I'm a Little Mix fan, and Salute is an old song. They have a much more recent song called Power that would have made a lot more sense as the song for this pay-per-view, because the lyrics in the chorus are like, what is it? You may reign, but I've got the power, and that's like the lead into every chorus is who's got the power. And the whole idea is that the women have the power ultimately. And so I thought, why on earth would you stick with that song when this particular group has like 3 or 4 songs that are more recent that really would have had more punch and really kind of fit the whole Evolution theme much more appropriately. But and yeah, why did you get that just atrocious sounding opening band? Why did you not get Little Mix to sing their song? It
was I have to agree. It was a little bit of a bizarre choice, but honestly, if that's the one biggest fault that we can find with the show, then I mean, like, we're splitting hairs at this point, which is a far cry from how it has been in recent memory, anyways. So,
no kidding.
So speaking of the show, like I said at the top of this, we're going to kind of go through the matches, and I'm going to get your result or your ideas and thoughts of what you thought about the match, the feeling, how the crowd was, etc. So, with all that being said, the first match that we had to kick off this evening was Trish Stratus and Lita, the Blast from the Past versus one Blast from the Past, Mickie James with Alicia Fox. Now, originally, as everyone knows, it was supposed to be Alexa Bliss in this match. Obviously, all the Bliss fits were very upset that she wasn't able to participate, but what did you think of this match?
I am a huge fan of Lita. Them get to go in the ring and hang and hear the pops they got. Like, the pop that Trish got was legit, and Lita's too. And it was cool to see, like, see them face off with Mickie again. And, you know, a lot of people kind of were coming down on the decision to make Alicia Fox the replacement. Like, why would you put her in there? People forget Alicia Fox is the longest tenured woman on the roster right now. She's been there longer than Natalya. She's been there longer than the Bellas. No one has been there longer than Alicia Fox. She absolutely deserved the spot on that card just for surviving on the roster this long. And she's not the strongest worker, but I think Alicia Fox worked her butt off tonight. I thought she looked great. She sold like a champ. She looked good out there. Like, as a whole, I didn't understand why people came down so hard on Alicia, because I did see a little bit of that on Twitter. Like, oh, why Alicia? Like, she's good.
To me,
her
it's
pick is a thing of beauty.
So, the match, or the winners of the match were Trish and Lita, which right there kind of shows you, okay, if those two are going over, then if they would have had somebody like, I don't know, Ember Moon, for example, in this match, and take a pinfall loss, then people would be way more up in arms, I feel like, than Alicia Fox. And I'm not saying that, nobody cares if she loses. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that you would have more people complaining if it was a quote-unquote brighter star in this match taking the loss rather than how they went. And to be fair, if you're kicking off the show with essentially three legendary women, and like you said, the longest tenured woman on the roster currently. So this whole match itself, the way it was laid out, just, to me, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, me too.
So, now that one made perfect sense, we're going to get into one that I think makes a little bit of questionable sense, and that was a 20-woman battle royal, or as I like to call it, a complete... that there's so much talent in that 20 women set. It's incredible. Like, you could have picked 5, 6, 7 of them. Could have main evented this show tonight, to be honest.
Absolutely. And I said that earlier. It was like, I'm really sick of Naomi not getting more shine. I think, and I've been accused. I was called a racist for this, but I said I didn't like how she's been set. Like, she's a great dancer, and I love the whole field, but I feel like people don't take her seriously like she's the dancer. And the moves she does in the ring, it drives me crazy that one of her signature moves is jumping up and hitting someone with her booty. Like, oh, you're the black girl, you got a big booty, so use that in the ring. Like, she is so athletic. Like, her movements are so smooth and fluid, and her reactions are crisp, and you can just tell she is so agile. You know, I keep telling people, watch her in the Money in the Bank match. She's one of the saviors of that match. She makes everything look so good. And I just feel like she keeps getting treated like a sideshow, or like almost just a filler. And she's so much better than that. And it drives me crazy to see her just get stuffed in these battle royals like an afterthought. And I felt like Ember Moon, why is she in a battle royal? Why is Asuka? Why has she been shuffled down to a battle royal? Like you said, there's so many women in this match. Couldn't you have done maybe a 10-woman battle royal and done maybe a 5-on-5 tag or something. Like, get more people more time to shine. But that's just me.
To me, it's almost a case of just trying to get people on the show rather than having a reason to have them on the show.
Yeah.
Like it's the old, what do we do with them? Put them in a battle royal. That's what it felt like to me. And it's like, and it's a shame. We have the match end with Nia Jax as the winner, which I find is a very bizarre choice to win the battle royal. And before everybody, actually, fuck that. Send your hate tweets to @6_podcast. It's fine. I'm all about it. But to have her win while physically it makes sense because she's the largest woman on the, and I don't mean by weight, but she's the largest woman on the roster.
She's a big girl, damn it. She's a big girl. I'm so tired of people kowtowing. She's a thick chick. I'm a big girl. I don't care. I'm a chubby chick, and I embrace it. She's a big girl, you know?
So, like, for that part of it, I can understand to a point having her win, but, like, when are you finally going to do something with Ember Moon of substance?
Yes.
And don't tell me, oh, she did this and this and this on NXT, because this I was just going to say that exact thing. This company continually proves that what you do in NXT doesn't matter a goddamn anything when you're on the main roster. So why they just inexplicably can't find anything for her is beyond me. Why Asuka is wasted in this spot. All Asuka, in my opinion,
Iconics over like fucking gangbusters, and they got thrown out in the first 5 seconds.
Yeah, they got dusted super quick.
They are over like Rover. Their merch is flying off the damn shelves. Why did you do that? You know?
To me,
honestly, I think the Bellas should have had that spot. They should have been the ones to come out, talk smack, and get tossed aside. That's where the Bella twins should have been, in my opinion.
And we're going to get into that later in the show as well. And never mind you that. But
we are.
So, yeah, just for me, in this match, it just seemed like there was too many stars simply used for cannon fodder. And I don't like when... Like, I just don't like that that's how you're going to set your winner up, is, like, she's just going to essentially get a bunch of shine off of people who legitimately should have won that Battle Royal. And then the other part of this is, Nia, I keep calling her Nia, I don't know why, but she had the title, lost it obviously at WrestleMania, as everyone remembers, and her title run was nothing, right? Nothing of substance. So now you're going to position her in a title spot again? To me, it's very bizarre, but what do I know, I guess?
So many other women who could really do something with that. Why Asuka's not getting it? Why Ember? Ember was who I wanted to see win. She was my pick, and I was really pulling for her there at the end, and I was just really disappointed. I'm not going to lie, I was disappointed to see Nia win. Like, she's great, and I don't dislike Nia. She just doesn't impress me. And I hate to say it, but I feel like did y'all know she's related to The Rock?
Yeah, and
let us interview her with Rock's mom so you don't forget. You know, like
almost immediately I saw, and like I don't want to, you know me, and I'm not really much for the whole dirt sheet stuff, but I immediately after this match saw somebody's quote-unquote reporting that she had won the Battle Royal as a favor for the Roman Reigns stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, if you're gonna be pissed about the match, be pissed about the match and how it went, which, like, obviously you and I are kind of in agreement that we don't really agree with the finish and who won, but to bring that part of it up is like, what the fuck?
That's just uncalled for, and it's tacky.
Yeah.
There's so much tackiness. Like, I was just talking to my brother about that today. Everywhere on the internet, like, it's just insane how much negativity and bitterness and it drives me crazy. Real quick, can we talk about Lana's botch?
Oh my God! Yes, we can.
Because clearly Tamina and Nia were doing the Samoan spot, which was meant to be a nod to their Samoan heritage, to The Rock, and I think honestly it was meant to be a shout out to Roman. I think it was meant to be like a little nod to him because they did the little hoo-wah thing that he does.
Yeah.
And clearly, at one point, Lana was supposed to walk up and break it up, but she walked up when they were doing that instead of when she was supposed to. And it was so obvious that she walked up at the wrong time because she literally walked up and then had to, look occupied and then walk up and do it again. And it was just like, Jesus Christ, they can't eliminate her soon enough.
So, just speaking on her real quick, so I had gone to a live show here in Winnipeg with Hollywood Southern Dandy. This would have been 2 years ago, and she was in a match. It was a 6-woman tag. I'm trying to remember who the teams were. Natalya, Becky, and Sasha Banks versus Summer Rae, somebody else, and Lana. And we saw her work, and we were like, Jesus fucking Christ, she's going to get hurt, or she's going to seriously hurt somebody.
Yes.
And it's
every time I see her in the ring, that's what I say. I'm like, she's going to hurt someone. And
that's 2 years ago. And I see her in a big spotlight tonight, and I'm still thinking the same thing. She's going to seriously injure somebody. It's going to be on one of these spots where she has no idea where to position herself or whatever. And, all it takes is a slip. We've seen how many people have career-ending injuries. Look at Paige, for example, right?
I was just about to say Paige. Just a split-second, complete freak accident, but that's how long it took.
And that's it. So, hopefully not, obviously, but, yeah, I'm with you. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be talking about us, botches like that, because, and we're going to talk about a few more later in this, because there's nobody exempt from this list, just so everybody's clear. But it's one of those things where I feel like certain people are protected in terms of botching things where others are completely eviscerated. And
there is someone who is closer to the top of the card and I tweeted it out tonight, when are we going to start talking about this person?
Yes. Okay, I don't want to get there yet. I think I know exactly where you're going, so we will get there for sure.
Also, in the Battle Royal, I called this, and I just want to pat myself on the back real quick, because I said this when they took so long to cash in Carmella's Money in the Bank. I called this. I said they've got buyer's remorse. They expected her to get better. She has not gotten better. They have no idea what to do with her with this Money in the Bank. They kept putting it off. They gave her a title run just to end it. And I said, as soon as she loses this title, she'll never come near it again. Now she's R-Truth's dancing girl. And what did she do in the Battle Royal tonight? She danced.
Yeah,
That's what she did. She is now comic relief girl.
She had her
Cinderella of the women's division.
Yeah, it's true though. She had her spot, a real chance to get better, and just couldn't or didn't. It depends who you want to listen to, I suppose, on that part of it. But it just didn't happen. And yeah, what do you do with her now? Probably nothing. She'll just wallow away.
It's she can come out to the ring with R-Truth at house shows and do the "What's up?" and dance.
Yeah,
that's what she'll do.
So.
And I mean, me and my brother laughed at that. Well, my brother said, "Boy, you called that one. Her fall is complete." She has.
Yeah, that was as quickly as it started, it came crashing down. Hey, it's kind of funny. In our third match, sorry.
I know a lot of people like to rave about that Zelina Vega girl. She did not impress me at all tonight. She does the exact same thing Carmella does. She doesn't sell. She screams. Screaming is not selling. Besides that, one of my biggest pet peeves, and this was something that Deborah McMichael would do, and Trish before she was a trained wrestler, instead of fighting, they would straddle each other and just sling their hair around. Because it made body parts jiggle and it titillated the men. Selena Vega does that. She straddles someone, grabs them, and just slings her hair around and screams. Like, she just looks, talks, and acts like that girl from the trailer park who's dating the top meth dealer. Like, that's what I think of. Like, oh, you've got the best meth cook. Good for you.
Which totally doesn't fit what they're doing. It goes against everything that they're going for right now in terms of how they're pushing women's wrestling.
Be a badass.
Well, yeah, but she's... Yeah,
I would think.
You would think, but is she presented as such? No. And does she work like one? Not even fucking close. No. It's not even close.
And I think, because she's seeing Almas's girl, right? Like, his whatever. Like...
Valet? Do they call him valets anymore? I don't even know.
Yeah, that's why I said she's his whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's dead weight for him. I don't think he needs her. And I feel like it's dead weight. Like, it's like they gave her that because they don't know what else to do with her. And I do not see a future for her, like, on the main roster. I do not see her hanging with this crop of women.
So speaking of futures of the main roster, we had in our third match, we had Toni Storm versus Io Shirai for the to determine the winner of the Mae Young Classic. Now I thought that this was
good.
Yeah, and this was super interesting to me. First off, that they waited this long to crown the winner of that classic, because correct me if I'm wrong, but tapings were 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit surprised that they didn't try and hotshot this one at that, what was that big event in Australia earlier in the month?
Greatest Royal Rumble?
No, the Supercard or whatever it was. Or the Super Show or whatever
Royal
it was.
Rumble was Saudi. What was it? Yeah.
The Super, it was the... the Raw and SmackDown Super Show, whatever it's called, whatever the fuck it's called. But anyways, I was very surprised that they didn't hotshot it and have it there, but they did it here. What a fantastic match.
Fantastic. I love Toni Storm. I love Io Shirai. They're both just extraordinary women, but I was really pulling for Toni.
And obviously Toni ends up getting the win, so she automatically gets a contract with the company. Obviously, They're going to be, like, there's no way they're letting Io Shirai go either. Don't kid yourself.
No. That German suplex on the outside of the ring, holy crap, dude. Oh, my God. I made a note about that. That German suplex, like, oh, Jesus. Like, I cringe thinking about it now. And Io Shirai's moonsaults are a thing of
just
beauty.
Beautiful. And even
like, I want to ask her, did you? Because, in Japan and China, they take women's gymnastics seriously. I'm like, did you start out in one of their gymnastics camps? Because she is so fluid.
And I wonder if that would be something, like, wherever she winds up in the company, I wonder if that's a facet of her backstory that they'll kind of explain. Because as great as it was to have them on the show tonight, you didn't really get a ton of personal backstory. Yes, you got obviously the backstory from the Mae Young Classic itself, but you didn't get like where
who
like
they are.
Yes, exactly, the personal side of everything. So maybe it's something that gets, and obviously a lot of people know Toni Storm's history because she's from this side of the world, right? Whereas Io Shirai obviously is from the exact opposite side of the planet, so it's a little bit harder to be able to research.
And the language barrier,
is a big part of it too,
definitely. And Toni, I really liked watching her tonight because she is the first female wrestler I've ever seen whose style, a lot of times when you watch people do like a collar and elbow tie-up, you can kind of guess, okay, they're going to do this, then they're going to do this. She does not do that. 3 different times tonight, they would lock up, and I would expect her to go right, and she'd go left, so to speak. Like, she's very unorthodox, and it's like she takes completely different. She'll go one way. She'll zig when you expect her to zag, and it's very interesting to watch because she'll make this move and you can tell, like, everyone's expecting her to do something else. Like, it's just really interesting for me to watch. Like, I've never seen someone do that. If that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, it does. But it's one of those things where she has a certain, we'll say it moveset that's totally different than what you're used to seeing, right? So when you do see it, you're like, holy shit, what was that, right? And then you see it more, and then you start picking up on the nuances, and you're like, this is way different than what I was expecting out of her in either this position or this lockup or whatever. And it just adds to her as a character.
Absolutely. Like, I was very, very impressed by both women. I really enjoyed watching last year's Mae Young Classic, but this year's, like, they just really built on that. Like, even the women who had done it last year. I'm sad that I didn't get to see Rhea Ripley tonight, but that's all right. But yeah, some truly, truly amazing women. And I know one thing I tweeted out during the card was I hope that the women on the main roster are watching these two, because they're showing a lot of y'all up. They're showing a lot of the main roster women up right now. Like, keep up.
And
this is what is nipping at your heels, ladies.
So I want you to hold on to that thought, because that's something I want to circle back to at the after we're done the results portion of this, because I have a very interesting set of questions for you, and I'm curious to see what your response is going to be for them. So in our fourth match of the night, we had a 6-woman tag. We had Natalya, Bayley, and Sasha versus the Riot Squad. I know that the Riot Squad, we'll say, gets mixed reactions from people on Twitter, which I find a little bit interesting, considering who the 3 baby faces were in this match, and they're quite polarizing in their own nature, but...
Yeah.
Sorry, so I die a little bit here. I'm still recovering from a chest infection, so this has been a real interesting...
Say, you sound like you're getting over the same crud I'm getting over.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter where you live. 8,000 kilometers or whatever separates us, but a chest infection will sure as hell bring us together. But I digress a little bit. So we have... I'll just quickly cover the winners. We had Natalya, Bayley, and Sasha winning the match. Banks did get the actual finish with the frog splash, which I'm going to talk about in a second as well. But we said we weren't going to pull any punches about botches. We got to talk about everybody's favorite, we'll say, Sasha Banks. What in the world? Please explain this. Yes.
That senton over the top rope that just fell like 3 feet short. I actually tweeted out, props to the Riot Squad, because they caught her and made it look like it was supposed to happen that way. Like, they were consummate pros in covering for her.
They saved her. There's no two ways to slice that up. They saved her 100%.
Yeah. And then one guy actually responded to me, goes, well, they were supposed to catch her. Duh. I'm like, if you don't understand what
3
I'm
fucking
saying,
feet
I don't know
closer.
what to tell you. Yeah. Like, she was supposed to fly out, and the idea was that she was supposed to get height, and she did not. And that threw me for a loop. I was like, okay, Sasha, shake it off. Shake it off. There was actually a second botch later on where Mandy Rose was going to kick her, and Sasha literally started selling the kick before Mandy's boot was off the mat. So literally, Mandy does the kick, and by the time her foot is whiffing by, Sasha's already laid out back on the mat. And Michael Cole had to save that one and goes, oh, Mandy trying for a kick, didn't get it this time, when it was painfully obvious that it was supposed to connect and Sasha was supposed to be selling it. And I'm like, man, Sasha, shake it off, baby. Shake it off.
I feel like, and my buddy Element's going to get pissed at me for this, but I feel like she's one who, she has her fair share of, we'll say, rough outings in the ring, and it always seems to get kind of glossed over it. I've said this on a couple of different programs. Like, when I watch her work, like, I can't see her wrestling into her 30s. The way that she ragdolls and everything in the ring is like, Jesus, I would never put myself in that kind of position, especially when she's taking those bumps to the outside, like, and not protecting herself and hitting neck first, back of her head, top of the shoulders, and I'm not talking top of the shoulders like you should. It's like, I'm watching this shit, and I'm like, holy shit, man, like
she crumples, yeah.
Yeah, like, folds like a fucking accordion. And I'm not talking like those real nice ones, I'm talking about the $2 one you find at a fucking flea market.
Yeah. The one that just kind of sounds like a cat dying when you squeeze it. It's like, oh, God, Sasha, that looks like it hurt. Yeah, you are definitely broke.
It's like that Family Guy when Peter gets crushed by a piano or whatever, and he's doing the gimmick walking out of it. Oh, God.
Exactly.
So I'm curious in this match what you thought of. There was a bunch of callback spots, and I'm sure you caught them, but we had Natalya initiating the heart attack, the old Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart finish.
Yes, and Renee Young called it the Legion of Doom Road Warrior finisher. She called it that. I'm blanking. Why am I? Doomsday device.
Yeah, that was a big miss.
She called it a doomsday device, and I was like, come on now.
And she's Canadian too, right? Which is like extra fucking... I'll give her a pass because I like her stuff, but Jesus. But the one
I'm a big Renee Young fan, but that one made me groan. Like, come on now.
So I had mentioned earlier that Sasha Banks had picked up the win in this match, but she did it with the frog splash. And I don't know why they went so crazy on commentary about putting over the whole Eddie Guerrero thing.
Yeah, like, considering that she's kind of always admitted and talked about her fandom of him, it felt a bit, and it was, if I can be honest, it was an ugly frog splash.
Yeah, it wasn't that nice. And then, we've covered this, right? They've covered this before in commentary, but it just seems odd that in an all-women's show, you like, they can't help themselves but talk about male talent almost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they talked about Bayley's being a fan of the Macho Man, which I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, I'm sure she was, but was he her absolute favorite? I don't seem to recall that being the case. But at one point, yeah, they made a reference to Bayley being a Macho Man fanatic, and then her hero, Eddie Guerrero. Like, can we just let the women have one night? Just one.
Yeah, just one. That's what we're asking for. It's just, like, you guys have been doing a good job. Just, lay off a little bit.
Yeah, just a scotch. Just let her have it. Just let her have a moment. Especially after the match Sasha had. Lord, just let her have it.
Yeah, exactly. So in our, the next match up, I should say, we had Shayna Baszler defeating Kairi Sane for the NXT champion or NXT Women's Championship. I know I don't really have to say exactly what it was because we know this was an all women's pay per view,
right,
but
I did it all night too, just out of habit.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it's exactly that. It's a habit because you're so used to. Okay, you have to say its proper name, or you have to everybody knows what we're talking about. But
all right,
what did you think of this match?
Something else I noticed myself doing tonight, and I noticed it at the very beginning in the Lita Trish match. But I kept, every time they do like a big move, I kept thinking, okay, that's it. Out of habit, I'm so used to women's matches being so over and done on a dime that I kept forgetting, oh wait, no, this is their show. Because I kept thinking, okay, that'll be it. Oh, no, it's not. They're going to keep going. Cool.
Yeah, because we've been so trained for the 3 minute,
like these women taking pinfalls for nothing.
Yeah. When the entrances are longer than the matches are, and you're like, oh.
Right, when they've got 4 minutes, including entrances, to put on a match. But that was just something else I noticed tonight. But Kairi and Shayna, I love Kairi, and I absolutely love the pirate gimmick. One of my dear friends is an indie wrestler in Albany, New York. His name is Benjamin Blackwell. I'm actually wearing his shirt right now. He's a pirate, and I dig pirate gimmick. Check out Benjamin Blackwell, Truly Independent Wrestling in Albany, New York, if you're in that area. Shout out to my buddy. But yeah, like, I love that she carried the title in a treasure chest. I just thought that was so cool. I love her little steering wheel and her little looking glass, and I just love everything about her because she seems so dainty and so cute. And then she gets in the ring and she's an ass kicker.
Yeah, she's anything but dainty and cute in the ring.
Yes, and it's incredible because you look at Shayna Baszler and you know that bitch is going to whip your ass. She is not playing around. And you just think, there's no way Kyrie can hang. And she does. And she does it convincingly. That's impressive to me. That she can make herself look like she hangs, you know what I mean, with someone like Shayna. And Shayna, I think they're going to, my pet theory on them keeping the NXT or putting the NXT women's title back on her is because they can't have her and Ronda both on the main roster at the same time. Yes, I agree. I think, and this is no disrespect to Ronda, but I think Shayna is a better promo and better in ring than Ronda is. And I don't think they want her. I think she would show Ronda up a little bit. Ronda is an extremely good athlete, and we'll talk more about that later. But I think Shayna has taken to pro wrestling better so far than Ronda. And it's not a knock, right? Like, a lot of people think that... I'm not bashing Ronda. Ronda's extraordinary. But yeah.
People cannot separate that, right? People automatically think that, why are you talking shit about Ronda or whatever? But
you're a hater.
Yeah, which we've had that discussion too, and how fucking ridiculous that is. But
yes,
what do you
can criticize something or someone that I love and still love them? At the same token, I have no problem paying a compliment to someone I don't like if they do well. Like, I'm not a Charlotte fan, but I complimented her. We'll talk more about that.
Yes.
But yeah, like, there were some spots in this match tonight that, like, the spot that just keeps getting me. Kyrie is vicious, and you don't expect it, and it just works so well because she's so cute. But the spot where Shayna was standing on one of the turnbuckle corners and holding Kyrie by her arm, just dangling her, looked so fucking cruel. Like, she truly looked like she was trying to kill her. That was incredible.
And especially considering her character and how you would not expect to see that. So it makes it that much more shocking when you do see it. And you're like, oh, fuck. Right? Like, yeah. We talked about this in the last match, right? It's one of these things that it's so outside your norm that when you see it, it really makes you stop for a second and think about it and really react.
Exactly. And I made a note about this too. Kyrie made it all through that match selling that arm. She never missed it. She never stopped selling it. Like, last pay-per-view, Ronda was selling one side and then accidentally started selling the other side and slipped up on that. Kyrie kept that arm tucked and sold it so much that I thought, man, is she really hurt? I think she might be really hurt. When you sell it that well that the fans start really, you shake them up and make them think, I think she's really hurt. That's when you did it right.
And we're going to talk about selling as well in the next match, but just one final point about this one I want to ask your opinion on. Obviously, I assume now that Kyrie is going to be called up to the main roster. Do you think that her gimmick with the Pirate, like, it's obviously super over in NXT, do you think that that's going to be able to translate to the main roster, or do you think that this is going to be one of those things where it doesn't get over right away, they panic like they did with Bayley, and then she's just, fucking vanilla after?
My idealistic side says that this is another opportunity for them to have a merch machine on their hands. They could sell little steering wheels. They could sell little treasure chests. They could sell little looking glasses, They could really merch this out and make this something. My hope is, of course, idealistically, that she can get on the roster and do something. but my gut instinct tells me that they're going to do her the same way they've done Asuka. They're going to use her to bulk up one of the women who speaks English better.
Yeah,
I hate to sound so cut and dried, but once again, like, as soon as Asuka came to the main roster and they were touting that undefeated streak, I said, she's going to give it to Charlotte at Mania. Wait for it. Because that was the time when they were just giving Charlotte everything.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that Kyrie is going to, now that they have weakened Asuka to the point that she's not a threat to anybody anymore. She went from being the first Royal Rumble winner, the baddest chick on the roster, to losing to Iconics in second. So I'm afraid they need a new pretty Japanese girl to bulk up the.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate that we're thinking like this, but we have no recent, or we have actually in general there's nothing that would tell us that this would go anything different, right?
And all reports say that Asuka's push was kind of pulled back because Vince didn't like how she sounded on the mic. Vince didn't like that she doesn't have a really good grasp on the English language. And it always just makes me scream, y'all signed her. Did you talk to her when you signed her?
Well, and the other,
get her a mouthpiece if she needs someone to speak for her. Make her a Paul Heyman girl, something. Come on.
But it's funny because Vince hates managers. Like, the one exception that there's been has been Paul Heyman, but as a rule of thumb, Vince McMahon has never been one to have managers in a prominent position. Like, that's why you saw guys like Cornette or Cyrus or even Jimmy Hart wasn't a great mouthpiece in the WWF. Not like he was in WCW or Mid-South or anything like that. It's just Vince, for whatever reason, he just hates managers being the mouthpiece. The two biggest exceptions to that rule, one was Paul Heyman, and then the other one was Paul Bearer.
Heenan. I was going to say Bobby Heenan.
Well, Bobby Heenan to a point, but he was so over. You could just, what did we do with him? Put Bobby Heenan with him. He just, like, you want to get somebody over, you strap Bobby Heenan to him, and that's what it was. But yeah, so just, it's like you said, did they talk to her before? Probably not, because they just signed everybody now anyways. But it's a shame that Asuka is just damaged goods now. It sucks that I can say something like that, and it's true.
And what really sucks, and again, this is not a knock, but Asuka's like 35. You know, Asuka doesn't have 15 years left. Asuka doesn't have, the women, we don't know yet if the women are going to run as long as the men. We don't know if these girls are going to hang around and, Trish retired pretty early. Lita retired young. Beth Phoenix got out of the game young. So we haven't really seen a woman stick it out till 40, 45. We don't, there hasn't been a precedent set for that, and I mean, yes, we had Alundra Blaze and Ivory in the Battle Royal tonight, but you saw how they were used.
Yeah, very, very sparingly, we'll say. We'll just leave that one at that, but.
Yes, but, so, like, Asuka, this could potentially be the last 3 to 5 years of her career. How long does she want to stay tied down to WWE, or does she want to go back to Japan where she can go rock in a Joshi promotion, make better money, work a lighter schedule, and get the respect she deserves?
Yeah, it's her situation in particular is going to be very interesting, I think, in the next year and a bit. We'll see what happens with her. So they didn't call it a co-main event, but I thought that this should have been the last match of the night, personally.
Oh, absolutely.
We had
Becky Charlotte should have been last.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, we have Becky Lynch defending her title against Charlotte Flair. Becky Lynch, obviously, is victorious, keeps her title. This was a no-holds-barred street fight, if you will, and not the catty ones like we used to see back in the 90s with bra and panties and fucking gimmicks, yeah. I will say, and I'm going to get my 2 cents out of this, and then because I don't really want to interrupt you too much in this one, but my only, well, not my only thing, but one of the main things that got me in this match was I wish that these two didn't fucking work every week leading up to this pay-per-view. Like,
right?
if they would have had these two run promos, never in the ring with each other, or video packages, or if they're in the ring but never touch, keep that tension, keep them separate, and then have this match. I thought that this match would have, and I'm not saying it was a bad match. Like, once again, send your hate tweets to @6_podcast. It's fine. But I didn't think that this was a bad match by any stretch of the imagination. I thought that just the intensity and the emotion could have been ratcheted up tenfold if they would have done their due diligence, let this be a real burn, rather than every week they're wrestling a fucking match. And it's like that old 50-50 booking. You win, then I win. Then it's a non-title fight, then you win. Then it's a DQ, and then it's this. And so that got me on that one. But I would like to hear your thoughts on the match itself, at least.
Honestly, like, Becky and Charlotte, like, I tweeted it out. Send your hate to @Miss Jenna _Lee. But no, I actually tweeted out, this was one of the best matches, not women's title matches, not women's matches on a pay-per-view, not pay-per-view matches, but one of the best matches ever. This is up there with some of the best men's matches. I believe that wholeheartedly. Those two, I have never seen two women go out there and just truly lay it all on the line like they did. I mean, by the end of the match, one thing you could see, because the women's costuming is so different than the men's, and they all wear, you'll notice women wear nude pantyhose, and most of them will wear fishnets over the nude pantyhose, because as a woman, I could tell you, it just holds things in better.
Mm-hmm.
And makes your legs look really lean under those harsh lights. But you could see at the end of the match that Becky's tights were just ripped to shit. And when they did the spot where she covered Charlotte with all the chairs, when they were laying out, you could see smudges of blood all over the inside of Charlotte's leg, but it was Becky's blood from Becky's elbow. Both of them had big gashes on their elbows, had their knees scraped up, their legs scraped up, like they went through it. And I know the guys do it all the time in TLC matches, and I know people are going to say, well, that's not uncommon. But it's for the women. It is for the women to go out there and fight that hard, that long, that brutally. And some of my notes, like that figure 8 ladder spot, was incredible. Once again, people who get protected, who botch, Charlotte Flair. She botched the first spot with the, she was trying to do the figure 8 in the ladder and she couldn't.
Yeah.
So she kind of just rammed Becky's legs into it and then tried again. And she also did the moonsault spot for the table and just completely missed. So when she went up there again, I'm like, Jesus, don't do this again. And fortunately, she just did a senton. I'm like, okay, you can see what you're doing better that way. You're not landing blind with a senton.
The other thing, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
The other thing that I didn't agree with in this match was, and you had mentioned it, when she's getting buried under the chairs there, in that whole sequence of events, and then she just like, so she gets like just brutalized, right, through the table, whatever, and like pops up.
Well, not only that, they stopped the count and she was only up to one knee.
Yeah, which I don't agree with either, but it
that was what killed it. Like, it was meant to, I think Charlotte botched that too. I think Charlotte was supposed to be at her feet by that point, because that was supposed to be the visual, you know, the big visual from the match, the Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder,
yes,
the bloodied McMahon staring at the ring grinning. That was supposed to be the big visual for that match, was her bursting out of the pile of announcer chairs and tables and everything else that had been piled on top of her. That because she made that crazy face, you could tell that was supposed to be the moment, the clincher, and she kind of botched it. She wasn't on her feet. And the whole thing is you're supposed to get to your feet before the count of 10, and she didn't. So I remember even tweeting out, she wasn't up. Are we just not gonna...
Yeah, we're not counting that, or...
Okay, alright. Word.
So at the top of the show, you and I had talked, or started talking about how this pay-per-view, they finally went out of their way to listen to the fans. This is the one exception where they didn't, and why the fuck are they continuing to try and push Becky as a heel when she is clearly the farthest thing from it?
That is so funny that you said that, because literally my finger just slid back up my notes and was like, and it says pushing Flair as sympathetic babyface. How? And I was just about to say that. Like, they are continuing to try to get Charlotte sympathy. Even Michael Cole, when the match started, when Becky stabbed Charlotte in the back, and Charlotte still does the spots where she cries, and, like, they need to understand, Charlotte is not a sympathetic character. She's a Flair. She's supposed to be a dirty player. She plays that cocky, smarmy bitch. She does not come across genuine at all as a babyface. She just doesn't, and it's not enough. Charlotte is a star, but she just needs to be the heel. Especially when you've handed her 7 titles already. There was that long stretch where every single time she got in the ring and competed for a title, it was given to her. It was like nobody beat Charlotte for ages.
The other thing that
at the beginning tonight, 24 pay-per-view wins. 24.
Yeah,
it's
insane.
On the main roster for 2 years? That's ridiculous.
The other thing of note that I did catch is, so they're doing the entrances. So Charlotte comes through, and you can clearly see behind her the plethora of Becky Lynch signs, and I'm like, this is you can't cut this away. Like, I understand at the end of the match they tried to cut away to the one random fan that would boo, but like you can clearly see behind that one random fan there was like everybody else was clapping and
everybody else was cheering. Yeah.
So it's like, as much as like they spend so much fucking time and energy trying to push their own agenda on this, whereas if they would just goddamn let this be organic, it would be way, way, way better, and then people wouldn't think that they're fucking idiots overbooking things. But they continually do this. It's this same nonsense, and you're like, why? Like, who does it?
Situations like that, you should listen to your fans. And I understand that if WWE just did whatever their fans wanted to, they would train wreck, because everybody...
Well, yeah, I'm not naive. I understand that.
Like you said, these growths, these pops, like, they should happen organically. And just like tonight when they were announcing Charlotte and Becky, Charlotte got covered in boos when they're like, from the Queen City, boo.
Yeah.
It was undeniable.
Yeah, exactly.
Undeniable. And as soon as they announced Becky, immediately the crowd went nuts. And Becky, Becky, Becky. Even before they did announced them, the Becky chants were going. Like, Becky even pointed to Charlotte and said, "You hear that, right?" Like,
and you could tell on audio that they had tried to kind of kill that a bit, but you
they were
can't.
Trying to mute it.
You can't, because then you may as well turn the fucking volume off if that's the case. But one of these little nitpicky things, I guess, that I picked up on. But so now we bring ourselves to the creme de la creme, as they say, because I am very, very excited to hear your thoughts on Ronda Rousey defeating and retaining her title against the world's greatest worker, the greatest thing since sliced bread, Nikki Bella.
Apparently, not liking the Bellas has become my calling card in the online wrestling community, because I get equal measures of love and vitriolic hate for it. I have had to block people on Twitter for harassing me for my opinions on the Bellas. It is insane. And just for all of you who do love the Bellas and want to come for me because I don't like them, just know that the harder you come for me, the harder I'm going to dog her out. So just know, Nikki Bella Dashian will never be my favorite. And if y'all hate me for it, I'm going to hit her harder. That's just how it's going to go. My gut instinct told me tonight that they were going to put that title on Nikki. Never have I been more glad to be wrong. Yeah. Literally, like, I actually scared my dog to death, because when Nikki tapped and Ronda won, I literally came up out of my chair screaming, like, yeah, like I was so happy. Because, once again, on the topic of WWE constantly pushing their agenda, if you look at the internet for 5 minutes, you see that nobody likes or respects the Bella twins. The Bella Army, as they would call it, is made up of little girls who are young enough that they believe everything WWE tells them, and they buy what WWE tells them to buy, or young teenage to early 20s women who idolize that type of woman because they grew up in that generation that has stuck it in your head that being vapid is okay if you're pretty. And like I tell people, my biggest problem with Nikki Bella in particular is the fact that she likes to present herself as a quote-unquote empowered woman. Nothing about that woman is empowered. Nothing. And so it infuriates me to see girls talk about they've worked so hard. No, they haven't. They do so much. No, they don't. You know, and tonight, every move Nikki did, I don't know if she just sucks that bad or if she was going up late for Ronda for moves. But to a degree, it almost looked like she was sandbagging her a few times. And that wouldn't surprise me because Maria Kanellis, Maurice, Kelly, and somebody else have all talked about Nikki sandbagging them in the ring, trying to make them look bad. So that was something I was kind of watching for tonight, too. Because Ronda's the big star now, and you can tell the Bellas can't stand anyone to get their shine, or what they think is their shine.
It's funny you mentioned the sandbagging part. Sorry to interject, but
no, you're good. Go for it.
Yeah, I thought the same thing in this match. It almost, and we all know that Ronda is not the most polished worker, which is fine because. No. I can buy into the fact that she would probably fucking murder me any day of the week, and it's fine. I'm cool with it, right? It's good. We're good with it.
I also can see growth from her first in-ring appearance to now.
Well, exactly.
Like every single time she gets in the ring, I see marked improvement, and she hasn't been doing it that long. And I have every reason to believe that this time next year she's going to be killing it. Whereas Nikki's been doing this for a decade and still can't do a collar and elbow tie-up.
But the biggest difference I find in somebody who's not quite there yet, but you can tell is putting in the effort, rather than somebody who can, well, supposedly work, we'll say, but kind of shows that, like, I don't know, it's funny you mentioned, like, hers, you know, potentially sandbagging her, because I was like, why is she taking a step down? Like, it really, to me, looks like she is either way behind everything for some reason, or like if that's the case, if it's ring rust or whatever, I don't know, right? But it looked like she's way off. First off, but just not only that, just everything just looked, and like she's not the you know the anything. She's no Bret Hart, right?
No.
I know we're not supposed to have guys on this show, but like whatever, right? Why don't we just use it as an example?
You had to name my all-time favorite, my number one. Oh, don't you dare! God, no, she's not.
Well, no, he's mine, and I'll show you one time, but I got my little shrine here at home. But anyways, I'm not weird like that or anything, but.
Oh, I have a shrine too. It's all good.
So, but she's. And I'm not saying you have to be either, but when you can clearly see that somebody who's far less experienced is far more invested and involved in a match than you are in the main event of the biggest women's pay-per-view in argue this all you want in history, right?
No, it's I agree with you. It is.
And this is what you're going to turn in for an effort. to me is so disrespectful to everybody who came through that curtain before you, and every woman, I should say, who is not on the show tonight and watched that performance. To me, that's just like, and why in the world this was the main event, I don't understand. I get Ronda's the biggest star right now. Fine, I can buy it. But this match, in no way, shape, or form, in any sensible terminology or whatever, should ever be your headlining event. It can't be. And especially not after that Becky Lynch-Charlotte match.
Nope. And that's what I kept saying is, oh, this is Nikki. Because Nikki and Ronda, I kept telling people it's not going to be a good match because both of them have to be in the ring with someone who can carry them.
Yes,
and
I
neither
agree.
one of them can carry anybody. And so I knew it was going to be a clusterfuck.
But it's different getting carried in your first 8 months and rather than your first 8 years.
Yeah. But no, I agree totally. Like, there are two things that Nikki Bella did tonight that told me that she hasn't changed a goddamn bit, that she's still just as selfish and entitled and useless as she's always been. Number one, the promo that she cut earlier when she was on the red carpet and she was like, this is dedicated to Ronda Rousey's mother. She said, I'm dedicating this match to Miss Ronda Rousey's mother. She couldn't even be bothered to learn Ronda Rousey's mother's name for the sake of a fucking promo. That's how little she cared. She couldn't even prepare a promo. She couldn't be bothered. The next thing, at the end of the show, after they showed the highlights package and they brought every single woman out on the ramp together to celebrate, the only two people who did not walk out there and celebrate were Nikki and Brie. And I don't want to hear Nikki just had the last match bullshit. Ronda was out there.
Well, not only that, you had the two. This was
Charlotte and Becky were out there.
I was just gonna say, right? The Ronda and Nikki match was no, 20-minute Broadway. It wasn't a long match, but you just had the two women previous who essentially tried to fucking perform murder on television. Right? They're out there.
And they went out there, and exactly, and those two things right there tell me that Nikki Bella has not changed a bit. She does not care about the wrestling business. She doesn't give a good goddamn about any of those women on that roster. Nikki Bella cares about Nikki Bella and advancing Nikki Bella. That's it. And that's why it drives me so damn crazy that the WWE right now on Shop Zone, there are 16 pieces of Bella merch. There is one Becky Lynch t-shirt. There is one Ronda Rousey t-shirt. What the fuck sense does that make?
Yeah, it's incredible. And especially considering Ronda is your most marketable mainstream star, it's mind-boggling.
Exactly. Well, look how over Becky is. You can't give her a couple of t-shirts?
Well, they can't even fucking feature the fans chanting for her or whatever on television.
Right. It's just, it's insane. It's insane. And I get it. The Bella's mom is married to Laurinaitis. I get it. They have gotten their hooks in all the way up the ladder. Like, that's what drives me crazy is, like, they keep pushing that empowered women agenda. Sleeping with powerful men to lock yourself a career is not empowerment. Okay? What Becky Lynch has done is empowering because she came in and Vince didn't like her accent at all. Didn't want her talking on TV. And she got herself over with the fans and she made herself matter. Asuka, that's empowerment. Can't hardly speak the language, but she can come over and put on a damn good show. That's empowerment. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Being John Cena's barely sentient sex doll is not empowerment.
So, unfortunately, it's not the end to the night that we had wanted or, quite frankly, should have been granted for the end of the show, but just your thoughts on this show in general.
Like I said, I honestly was afraid they were going to put the SmackDown title on Charlotte, and I was scared to death they were really going to put that Raw title on useless Nikki. So I have never, ever, ever been so glad to be wrong Overall, I thought the show was excellent. It is one of the best pay-per-views overall that I've seen all year. I rank it up with WrestleMania even. I didn't think this year's WrestleMania was that great. I really enjoyed the show top to bottom. Even with the few botches here and there, I think that every single lady should be damn proud of herself because every single match was good. Every single match was engrossing, and I got into it. I also want to give a shout out to Jessica Carr, the female ref. I thought she did a great job.
Yeah, she was fantastic all night.
Wanted to give her a little shout out because I thought she did great. I didn't notice anyone giving her any love. So Jessica Carr, you kick ass. The crowd was white hot for this show all night. Chanting, cheering, reacting, booing and cheering as people would punch each other back and forth like they would in a guys match. The crowd was hot for this from open to close. They reacted and they gave back. I think New York was a great choice for a location for this. I think New York or Chicago would have been your only real options for this because you want to make sure that you've locked in a hot crowd. And, yeah, I think that was... I could not ask for any better, with the exception of having, Becky Charlotte and Nikki Ronda flipped on the card. I couldn't ask for anything more. I am pleased as punch with those ladies.
So I'm totally in agreement with you. I had made a comment actually on a episode of my other program when we were heading into Bound for Glory for Impact Wrestling. The build for that was awful, and I had made the comment on the Bound for Glory pre-show that I would much rather have a terrible build and an over-delivered pay-per-view. And that's kind of my feelings on what happened tonight. The build for this was awful. Like, there's no two ways to say it. It was a terrible...
It was damn near non-existent.
It was terrible. No, it was awful. And it was such a disservice to the women. However, the women over-delivered on this pay-per-view to the point where anybody who missed this one tonight it's a shame. Because you honestly did miss one of the best pay-per-views of not only this year, but probably the last 5 years or so, for sure.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely.
This thing, to me, it had elements of everything. There, you had your emotional connections. You had, obviously, some fantastic matches. You had matches that people were invested in emotionally and cared about who won the matches. That's the important part. Because a lot of times you see a match and it's two wrestlers going through the motions, then it's over, and then nobody fucking cares. And the finish happens, and it's flatter than a plate full of piss, and you just move on. This one, every match seemed important. Every woman who was wrestling in there, obviously a bit of the exception in the 20-woman Battle Royal, but every woman who was in a match, in a spot, in something specific, made it seem like that exact moment meant everything right there. And it was just, it was so nice to see.
It doesn't happen anymore. Like you said, the 50-50 booking just has destroyed, and I know we've talked about this before, but there's just too many pay-per-views. It's hard to make pay-per-views matter when there's like 13 a year.
Yes, I agree.
When you have one every single month, how do you build? You can't build meaning in 3 episodes of Raw. You just can't. You cannot make it something pay-per-view important in 3 weeks. You need to build it. And they just don't have that anymore.
So speaking of build, I'm assuming that we are going to get yourself on. I think Jimmy Yadig, my boy from Twitter, is going to join us, and we're going to have ourselves a little roundtable on women's professional wrestling in the next few weeks, because I feel like, obviously yourself, there's a reason I've had you twice on the show. Your opinions, not only on women's wrestling, that specifically, but your just opinions on wrestling itself and your knowledge and intellect towards all things said is just off the chains. And I think with Jimmy,
thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm not buttering you up just to butter you up either. So, so I'm extending the invitation to you. We're gonna do a little women's wrestling roundtable if you are interested.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I like Jimmy. I've chatted with him a good bit on Twitter. He is a sweetheart. I told him, I think he and I are going to get together tomorrow night and record a little something talking about this. You ought to get in on that with us. We should all do it.
Beautiful. So, until that happens, wherever you are listening to this program, whether it's on YouTube at youtube.com/c/six-sided-podcast, or if you are listening to this program on all of the streaming or downloadable services such as Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Deezer, anywhere you steal, sell, barter, trade, whatever your favorite podcast, search us out, Six-Sided Podcast. Jenna, where can people find you if they want to hear more from you?
I am all over the place. You can find me on YouTube at Jenna Lee's Beauty Slam. You can follow me on Twitter at Jenna Lee Miss Jenna _.Lee. Whoops. And I am also on Instagram at Jenna's Beauty Slam. Definitely hang out with me. I stay active every day on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Come hang out with me. I promise I'm a blasty blast. And maybe I'll sing you one of my Nikki Bella theme songs.
So even though she messed up her own plug, make sure you follow Miss Jenna on all social media platforms. You're a fool if you don't. Jenna, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Boom.